Hello, everyone. That's in Bible study land. I just call it that way. I know you're on YouTube. I call it that way because this is what we're doing. We're studying the standard Sunday school lessons. Is what we're doing. I pray that you've been benefited by it, uh, and you can let me know that you've been benefited by it. By at the end, after you um, go through the lesson, you give me a thumbs up for that. I appreciate that. That will really promote the channel. And also, if you would subscribe, that would help me also, and I do appreciate this. What we're doing today is, if you remember, we're doing the lessons concerning Ruth and Boaz, and of course the Bible, what it says about Ruth. Now, there's three lessons. I've already put two on already, and we're getting ready to do the final lesson here, the third and final lesson. And all these together makes up one lesson. I hope that you saw the previous two because they'll be the ones that's going to be tying it all together. And today, of course, we're going to do the final one, dealing with, of course, Ruth and Boaz. Now, the first one that we put out was called Ruth Follows Naomi. If you can remember that, they were in a different area. They were in a place called Moab, is where what happened, and they had so many tragic things that happened to them there. Naomi's husband died, and Ruth's husband died, along with one of the other daughter-in-laws. Her husband died as well. So all you pretty much had was three widows left. And Naomi decided to go back to Bethlehem, where she's from. She's a Jewish woman, and she wanted to go back to Bethlehem, but she did. And the other daughter-in-law chose not to go, but Ruth wanted to stay with her. The Moabite wanted to stay with her, and they both went back to Bethlehem. The second lesson was called Ruth Meets Boaz, as it continues there. And of course, while she was there in Bethlehem, she met a very wealthy man who happened to be related to Naomi by marriage. And so, but she met them and they formed a relationship. And that was the number two. Today, we'll be looking at Ruth Marries Boaz. Ruth Marries Boaz. Now, that's going to be coming from the book of Ruth, chapter 4, verses 1 to 10. I asked excuse me because I didn't let you know. Make note of this. This is going to be where we'll be studying today. And this will be the final lesson of these three lessons. This will be the final one. Ruth Marries Boaz. Ruth chapter 4, verses 1 to 10 is what we'll be studying. Just 10 verses, but they're action-packed, and they give a reason why this is in Scripture and what it can come to, and what it actually did come to. Okay, so I want you to take a moment and find that in your Bible, Ruth chapter 4, verses 1 through 10. While you're doing that, while you're going to it, we're a little background of Ruth chapter 3, and we're at 4 today. So Ruth chapter 3 describes what happened between Boaz and Ruth that led to this pursuit to become a permanent protector and husband. This went step by step as they started courting one another and becoming closer. Yeah, Ruth chapter 3 described that. Naomi had shown Ruth how to indicate to Boaz the proper way if she desired his relationship. Don't come after him as though you are hungry for a man, but do things properly. Some men, in most cases, don't want to be chased. They would rather be the chaser. And in this case, Boaz was that type of person. But of course, Ruth wouldn't have known that if Naomi said, let me talk to you woman to woman and let you know how some men think. You have to stay proper. You have to keep up your integrity. Is what you must do. Boaz was flattered that Ruth wanted him. Yes, he thought well of himself that this beautiful young lady wanted his attention. He felt good about it. Ruth's appeal was for Boaz. Actually, she had a reason for that. She wanted him to become his kinsman redeemer. And that would be to make a relationship with her for the rest of her life. This is what she wanted. Boaz informed Ruth that there was another kinsman who was more closely related to her than he was. He would get the first right, not Boaz. It would be this other kinsman. He would get the first right for this relationship. And that person would have to be given the first opportunity to perform this duty. Now, of course, this was all according to the laws of the Hebrew peoples. No, we don't have anything like that now. But this was what they did according to their laws. And they wanted to go by doing what was right and that would fit right in their culture, in their society. So Boaz says the other person, which the scripture don't give us his name, said he gets the right to redeem you first before me. Now, if he rejects you, then I get the right following that. So this is where our lesson starts at, and we will, as we go through these verses, we'll fill in everything step by step from the beginning of this part to the end of it, to what's this all about? What is it all about? What does it add up to? So let's get ready. We're going to go to verse 1. That's, of course, in verse number 4. And I'm going to put verse 2 with verse 1 also. So follow me if you will. Then went Boaz up to the gate and sat down there. And behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spake came by. Unto him he said, Hold such a one, turn aside and sit here. This is Boaz talking to this unnamed kinsman, the one who has the right first to redeem Ruth. So he calls him at the city gate. The city gate is where you came and you took care of business. It was like a court, and that's where you came to use. And he had places for you to sit, and you took care of business there, legal business. So this is where the city gate was. So he told this unnamed kinsman who had the right ahead of him to sit down here. And he turned to the side and he said, There's plenty of seats, there's no problem, you sit here. It appeared that this kinsman came first to the gates. The invitations were sent out by Boaz for them to come there because they had business that they had to attend to. And of course, let's look at the rest. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, Sit ye down here. And they sit down. The next morning, that's when business was going to start happening. The 10 elders represent to make things official. You had to have witnesses that they were following the proper laws of the Hebrew people for what they were about to do. The 10 elders was the ones who came also. They were invited. They were sit there right next to the unnamed kinsman. Now, watch what's happening here as we're going through this kind of like court action. Boaz is in total control of everything. He's handling everything just the way he sees fit. You know why? Because he knows what he wants, he knows how to go about it, and he knows exactly what to do. He's in charge of everything. Seemed like these elders would have had more responsibility and charge, but no, they didn't. They went by what Boaz was saying and what he was doing, the 10 elders. Now, as for this unnamed kinsman who had first rights, he was just going along, doing what he was told to do, not asking many questions, not saying, I don't understand this, don't understand that. He was just following the wind. Whichever the way the wind was blowing, that is the way that he followed right there. Now, the next morning, when they got ready for the actual event that takes place. Boaz began the process of obtaining the right to become the kinsman and the redeemer of the girl of his love, the one that he loved. He started working on that. Keeping in mind that this unnamed redeemer had the right to her first, and anything else that she had. And there was something else that came in the pot. What else came in the pot is the land. The land that had already been paid for would have came to him. Wouldn't have cost him a nickel. He would have had the land as well. Let's continue on and see what's going on right here. This would be a legal transaction that required the witnesses of some of the elders of the city. Some of the elders of the city had to be there. Boaz decided, I'll get 10 of them. That'll be enough. Actually, that's more than enough. And the reason why they used 10, that number, always showed up very heavily in the Old Testament, because 10 is something you can remember. You can remember like at the 10 Commandments. 10 always also there too. And the reason why they would use 10 is because of this. Because of 10 fingers. It gives you the ability to count each member of the elders. It gives you the memory to be able to count each of the 10 commandments. You do it in tens. So that was something that was part of their custom that they pretty much did. Let's finish on about what's happening, what's going on here in this city around at the gates of what's happening. The legal matters would be carried out at the gates. The gates were at the front part of the city is where you would handle the business. So you have your 10 elders there, and you had this unknown redeemer, unnamed redeemer. The scriptures don't give us too much about him. Is that he has first right over all the goods. And what? The next morning he waited for the kinsmen to arrive. Boaz told him to come in and sit down. Then the 10 elders showed up at Bethlehem's gates. Have a seat, instructed Boaz. Everybody's there. We're here for business. The scene was set. All the legal procedure was ready. Everyone was sitting down except for who? Boaz. He's standing up like a legal attorney. He's talking to him boldly. Everything is going to go his way. Nobody's allowed to raise their hand and ask any questions because Boaz is making it straight to them, clear to their ears. He's directing the entire thing. The elders know what he's doing and they understand it. He's saying everything right and good to their ears. However, this kinsman is confused. Boaz is going too fast and he's using legal words. The kinsman didn't come for this, but he's got something in it. So he's waiting for what happens here. Then the 10 elders showed up. The scene was set for the legal procedure. The case, the name of the case was Ruth had requested Boaz to become her redeemer. That's what she wanted. However, this unnamed redeemer went ahead of Boaz. So they had to follow the proper procedures. And Boaz was ready for this. Let's see how he did it in verse number 3 and verse number 5. And he said, and to the kinsman, who is the he? Boaz, remember, he's the one who's covering this. He's talking to the kinsman here, who probably don't know too much of what's going on. But Boaz, he's talking to the kinsmen in front of the elders. They're witnesses to what Boaz is saying, making sure he's not saying anything that's unlawful, that's not right, or that is too complicated, that's going straight by the rules. Boaz said to the kinsmen in that third verse, Naomi, that is come again out of the country. He let you know. Naomi, of course, is who we are discussing, but we're discussing more than Naomi. He's discussing Naomi. Now, the kinsman, he's aware of Naomi. Who was Naomi to him? That was his sister-in-law. That's who it was. Because her husband, his brother, had died. So I know about Naomi. I only care about the land that my brother had. It comes to me. Bingo. That's why I'm here. It comes to me. Any of his wealth would come to me. That's why I'm here. I'll put up with all this other stuff I don't understand. By the time we adjourn this meeting, I want to walk out with that land, with the title of that land. After that, I'm through with it. I'm through. That's all I want. Moab selleth a parcel of land that was our brother's land. Now, Boaz used the word our brother as saying we're both Jews. But this particular man, this unnamed man, it was his blood brother. Elimelech was his name. Your rights should go to you because your brother died. So it should come to you. And everything that he owned should be yours. It should be yours. And verse number 4 says, and I thought to advise thee, saying, buy it before the inhabitants and before the elders of my people. If thou wilt redeem it, but thou wilt not redeem it. Then tell me, that I may know that there is none to redeem it but besides thee, and I am the after thee. And he said, I will redeem it. Okay. None of that didn't make too much sense, especially the way that Boaz was putting it in front of this gentleman. Because Boaz was putting a lot of words together very quickly is how he was doing it. He wanted to definitely appease the elders to making sure that he's not putting anything in there that was not legal. And this is what he was doing. The piece of property in question that Boaz was talking about here is the lot that once belonged to Elimelech. Elimelech was his blood brother. And the wealth of Elimelech that he had accumulated, now since his brother Elimelech died, and he didn't even die in Bethlehem. Even though he had property in Bethlehem, he died in Moab. And now his property and all of his wealth belongs to you. You don't have to pay a nickel for it. All you have to do is redeem it and accept it. And you can do that right here. That's what you are here to do. And he goes on to let him know everything that's going on behind the scene. He says, Naomi, that was his sister-in-law through marriage. Naomi had become the owner of her husband's lot. So Naomi has it now. The problem was, but after the death of her husband, your brother, after the death, Naomi had become poverty stricken, and she is forced to sell the land, which she can legally do. She can sell it to a land buyer who comes along and buy it. However, according to our laws and our principles that we must live by, before she sells the land, she has to offer it to a redeemer. A redeemer will be the next person in line to inherit the property, and that is you. Oh man, sounding pretty good. Sounding good. Yeah, Elimelech, he had some wealth. He did all right. So Naomi have all that, and the land won't cost me a dime. They didn't have dimes back then. Denarii, let's put it that way. It won't cost me a denarii or nothing out of my pocket. By law, it belongs to me. Every bit of it. Let's finish it. However, the land, after the death of her husband, she had become poverty stricken, and she's being forced to put the land up for sale. It's what she's being forced. But going by law, it comes to you first. And of course, not for sale, but to become your property. However, the land could be redeemed by the nearest kinsman. That's you. We don't know your name. I'm sure they know the name, but the Bible is just not mentioning his name. It could be redeemed by you. This way, it will be kept in the line of the family. That's the reason why we do this by the way that we do it. That's why it's part of our law. Boaz explained this situation to this unnamed kinsman. I can see him right now saying, yes, yes, yes. Oh, yeah, go on talk, man. I know I don't know very much of what you're saying, but what you are saying that I like, that I'm getting ready to get this land for practically nothing. And everything that my brother Elimelech had acquired, I'm getting ready to get this. Come on, get this thing over with. I want to go party. Come on, say what you got to say. Since you are the closest kinsman, as Boaz is talking to him in front of the 10 elders, since you are the closest kinsman, you have the first right to redeem this land. Good day. I woke up on a good day. I'm having a good time with this. This unnamed redeemer is saying everything is going my way. I'm a man of wealth, and my wealth is growing this day. As he's thinking to himself, after hearing the proposition has been presented to him. The unnamed relative said, yeah, I will redeem the property. Yes, I'll redeem it. I'll take it. I'll take it. So it's not for sale anymore to the next buyer to come along. I'll take it. I'll do it that way. He was thinking this would be an advantage to him. You know, whenever people come across the possibility of getting quick, big money, they lose their focus about what's going on behind the scenes that's making this quick, big money. It don't always come by that easy. Most of the time have something attached to it. Now we get ready to find out what's attached to this quick, big money, this free real estate that's getting ready to come this way. Boaz was expecting he would say that. Boaz knew he was going to say that. So Boaz was ready from him to let him be known about the rest of the story, the rest that you are not understanding. So Boaz begin. Let's just call these next two verses, if I can name these next two verses, let's call them the kinsman's inability to redeem. Verse number 5 and verse number 6. I know we're moving fast, but there's a lot to be said here. Then said Boaz, what day thou buyest the field of the land of Naomi, thou must buy it also the Ruth, the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance. Verse number 6. And the kinsman says, first of all, before I tell you what the kinsman said, did any of that make sense? What Boaz was telling him? Boaz was given a lot of strings that's attached to the freebie land, talking about responsibilities this man would acquire if he was to be the redeemer of this land. Now he's naming people. What comes with the land is my sister-in-law. That comes with the land too. And her daughter-in-law, that comes with the land. That means I have to take care of them too. 2 widow women. I'm responsible for them. And that sounds pretty expensive. Wait a minute. Wait, hold on just a second now. Now let's see what he had to say in verse number 6. And the kinsman said this, while he had a moment to speak. He said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar mine own inheritance. Redeem thou my right to thyself, for I cannot redeem it. It's too much responsibility. I thought you was to just give me the land and I can walk out of here. But no, now you're naming people that I got to take care of. Let's go a little bit deep with this so we can get a better understanding. Boaz was saying to this unnamed kinsman, he was saying to him, now listen, I know you're all happy about this land that you are about to receive. I know you're all happy, but there's a little bit more to this that I must explain to you. He says, you will be responsible to fulfill what's called a Levirate marriage law. It's one of those things that's in the laws. There were so many laws. There were 612 of them, to be in fact. There's so many laws. You don't remember them all. You don't know them all. But Boaz knows the ones that he needs to use, and he's bringing them up. Now, this can be seen as a phrase Boaz used. He kept using the word to raise up the name of the dead up on his inheritance. And this was part of that particular law, which wasn't that understandable. But Boaz is going to make good sense of it to this kinsman who decided, oh no, this got too many strings attached to it, this free land. In order for Elimelech's name to continue with his sons, and both of his sons are dead too. But in order to keep that name to continue and his sons to continue, his name would have to come through the oldest daughter-in-law. The oldest daughter-in-law who had not had any children, and her name is Ruth. That's the oldest daughter-in-law who had no children either. She was married to Elimelech's oldest son. So actually, that son that died was your nephew, man. Yes, it was part of the family. That son that died was related to you. It was your nephew. She was married to the oldest son, Marlon, and he died as well. He died too. Boaz linked Ruth and Naomi and explained to the kinsman, you would have to if you take over the property, you would have to buy their portions of it. So you would have to come up with some money, brother. And you'd have to do that. You would have to buy it from Ruth. Oh, Ruth had a portion of it also because she was married to Mahlon. And that's Elimelech's son. So you got to buy that piece from her as well. Oh, it was getting more and more complicated. And he had to take Ruth according to that law. And Boaz was on top of it. And by the way, my brother, you've got to take Ruth as your wife in order to have children in Elimelech's name. What? I got to do all that? Now, there is no scripture who says anything about the Levirate marriage to the law of redemption. There's no quick scripture to give that. But if this man wasn't a student in the scriptures, he should have known. But Boaz was ready for that too, just in case up. It is possible. It isn't possible that a local tradition or laws could be specifically this kind of an agreement. We can see that Boaz totally confused the kinsman by talking over his head. Right things and legal things, but Boaz was talking over his head. He was totally in charge of this meeting. All that man understood is that if he take this land, he would have to support Naomi and Ruth along with it. He'd have to have children with Ruth, is what he would have to do. Just in the name of Elimelech's son. You would have to do that. What started off as a financial benefit now turned into a financial liability, one that he didn't want. Before the elders and all the other witnesses, the unnamed man got out of his seat and says, I don't want this, Boaz. I don't want no parts of this. As he was leaving, I'm through. I'm out of here. Boaz, you take it. I don't want it. I don't want none of it. I'm gone. You take it, Boaz. Oh, go, Boaz. Boaz knew what he was doing. Yes, he knew what he was doing in every word. Let's take a look at verse number 7 and 8. Now, this was the manner of the former time in Israel concerning the redeeming of and concerning changing to confirm things. A man, what a man would do, he would pick off his shoe, this is verse number 7, and give it to his neighbor, And this was a testimony of Israel. I'll explain all this. Verse number 9. Therefore the kinsman said to Boaz, buy it for thee. So he drew off his shoe. Now, what happened right here? For you to say that I don't want this land, and when you rightfully had to you were for it, right? You were the one who was for it. You was the one who would receive it. You was the right person, and you was the redeemer there. In front of the elders and in front of Boaz, you had to do this deed according to the law. You had to take off your shoe. Well, I'll just make it proper. You had to take off your sandals, one of your sandals, and you had to give that sandal to the next person who would be the redeemer of the land. The reason why you did this with the shoe or with the sandal is making an oath to the one who would be the redeemer of the land that you will not legally or non-legally set foot on that land that you're giving up. You can't visit it. You can't go over to walk on it to see how it is. When you give that sandal up, it means that you are not and you cannot come on the land that you gave up. That's pretty much what they asked. A lot of laws, didn't they? A lot of laws. My goodness, you'll spend 2 years studying them. Like I said, there were 612 laws that they had to live by. And now, let's break this down and understand it. When the kinsman gave up his right to redeem Naomi's property, he took off his sandal and he gave it to Boaz. Boaz, it's all yours. I can't come. I'm not going to be there. You'll never see me there. And this was a legal transaction in ancient Israel. That's how they did it. This meant he was handing over his right to even walk on the land. Walk on it. I can't even come and visit you. I must remain at the border and call for you. I can't even walk over to see you. This custom had been discontinued before the book of Ruth was written. It was an old custom. They didn't really follow it too much anymore. It meant that it was still active, but it was just something that they didn't really follow that much anymore. This is why the writer, whoever wrote this, who I'm not totally sure, the actual writer who wrote this, this is why he said, now this was the manner in former times of Israel. This is what it was like. What I would like to do with you right now, before as we draw near to the close of this letter, I want to read to you this law to let you see that yes, there's something here in the Bible concerning what Boaz is saying. It really is a law. And that is found in the book of Deuteronomy. Those of you who know, you don't have to follow me, just make note of this. It's in the book of Deuteronomy. The word Deuteronomy means second law, is what it means. Deuteronomy chapter 25, verses 5 through 10. Follow me on this. The reason why I'm using it, because I think it's something that you will get something out of. It goes like this. As we're drawing near to the end of the lesson, but I just want this to be a part of it for you to understand. It says this in Deuteronomy chapter 25, verses 5 to 10. If brothers are living together and one of them dies without a son, his widow must not marry outside the family. Her husband's brother shall take her and marry her and fulfill the duty of his brother or of the brother-in-law to her. The first son he bears shall carry on the name of the dead brother, so that his name will not be blotted out of Israel. Verse 7, however, if a man does not want to marry his brother's wife, she shall go to the elders. Hey, who happens to be there? 10 elders. Let's finish. Go to the elders at the town's gate. Where are they meeting? At the town's gate, right? And say, my husband's brother refused to carry on his brother's name of Israel. He will not fulfill the duty of a brother-in-law to me. And verse number 8 says, then the elders of the town shall summons him and talk to him. If he persists in saying, I don't want to marry her, I don't want to have any part of all this. If he persists in saying that, his brother's widow shall go up to him in the presence of the elders and all that are present. And she will say to him, take off your shoe. Take off your shoe or sandal, which was the custom. And as he take off his shoe, she will spit in his face. That's part of the law. She would get close enough to put spit in his face and say, this is what is done to a man who will not build up his family. He become a man, or his name is called the man who's known in Israel as the family of the unsandaled man. You see him walking without a shoe, you know who he is and what it is. I think, now I could be wrong here. I think this is the reason why the Bible don't give us his name. Because he'll be known as the unsandaled man. So I don't think we're going to do that. Now, all this took place at the gate of Bethlehem when Boaz plans to become Ruth's protector, provider, and husband was made possible. Oh, everything seems to be going good. This unnamed redeemer, he's finished. So now it's legally Boaz. Now let me tell you what Boaz had done the day before he came to this court hearing. And Boaz has said to the elders, now this guy's gone, we're through with him. So he's talking to the elders now, the 10 elders, Boaz has said. He said, unto all the people, ye are my witnesses this day. You are my alibis. You heard and you seen what just happened. It's what he says, that I have bought all that was Elimelech's, and that it was Chilion's and Mahlon's, that happened to be the sons of Elimelech, who had died also, and the hand of Naomi. So he's in charge of taking care of Elimelech's wife, previous wife also. He goes on to say, moreover, he wants these elders to know. Moreover, this is what I'm here for. Ruth, the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, I have purchased to be my wife. She's mine. I've already taken care of this because I knew he was going to turn it down, so I already paid for it. I already did it. It's done. It's done. And he says, I purchased Ruth to be my wife, to raise up the names of the dead upon his inheritance, that the name of the dead shall not be cut off among his brethren. And what he's simply saying, in every bit of the law, every letter of the law, I did it according to the law. I did it before we met here at the city gates. It's all done because I knew this unnamed man wasn't going to live up to it. So I just took care of it before we met today. And it's all done. Why? Because I love Ruth and I love her so much. And love will send you to do anything for someone who you love. I already took care of it. It's done. And all this was done at the gate, the city gates at Bethlehem. In this place, ye are my witnesses, is what Boaz's final words were as he was closing it up to the 10 elders. Oh, there's not too much they can say. You're my witnesses. It's already done. Boaz asked, did you hear and did you see what just happened? Did you see what just happened? As he was speaking to the 10 elders, you are witnesses. What was once Elimelech's and Shion and Mahlon's, I acquired it. I have it. I own it. It's paid for. Whatever I have to pay, I already did it. And you 10 elders, you are here and seen that. There are 2 more events I want you elders to understand before we close and adjourn this meeting. 2 more events I want you all to remember as you leave from the city gates of Bethlehem. These two events. Number one, the transaction of ownership of the property. It is now mine. I'm in charge of it. The transaction is done. And the last event I want you to remember, the number two, is the acquisition of Ruth as my wife. I want you all to remember that. Take that home with you and spread it to the community. As we close up these three lessons, what is it all about? Why is this in the Bible? There got to be a reason why this is in the Bible. Why we talk so much about Ruth and Boaz. Why is that in the Bible? There are other love relationships that happen in the Bible. But why this particular one? Let's take a look at the things that happened real briefly as we prepare to close this lesson. The writer, whoever wrote this, never theologized on this account he was telling. Perhaps, just perhaps, he wanted to suggest something that if a human could love an outcast, if a human could have that much love to someone who was not even related to the family, were not even related to his people. In this case, it was a Moabitess, not related to the Hebrew people, to the Jewish people. She was considered an outcast. If a human could have that kind of love for this outcast, could he also redeem that outcast too? Could he bring that outcast closer relationship with God? Could he do that? Could Boaz redeemed Ruth by bringing her into his fellowship to himself. That's how he redeemed her. Then if a human could do that, the writer here is suggesting, then God could love all the outcasts of the world and redeem them to bring them into his fellowship and with himself. Then God can do it. If a man can do it, God can do that to the whole world. If it can happen. And God made that possible. What Boaz did for an outcast. God did that for for people who's an outcast to him, to bring them closer. As we close up the last sentence of this, as we look and see, what did Ruth get out of this? Knowing that she was behind all of this that God had planned. Let's just look and see right quick. Ruth had children. Her first son was named Obed. Her grandson was named Jesse. Jesse was her grandson. Jesse, of course, was the son of King David. King David became her great-grandson. And Jesus, the Son of God, came through this lineage also from the line of Ruth and Boaz. Oh, yes. God bless you. Thank you so much. I pray that you've had a good understanding of the final lesson dealing with Ruth and Boaz. God bless you. We look forward to the next lesson that we come to, and I'm sure we'll have something very exciting for you. God bless you all. Thank you so very much.